Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we're live right now on YouTube?
On YouTube, Facebook, Rumble.
So I can say hi to Jordan right off the
Yes,
bat.
you can say hi to Jordan right off the bat. Did you ignore him again last week?
No, actually.
You figured it out?
I figured it out. I probably didn't share the episode with everyone that I wanted to, but it was a last minute interview. It was so great of Stafford to jump on the show, and we had a really good talk. That woman can talk so quickly. I mean, and I had her at a really bad time because it was prep for convention the night before. So she just snuck out of the prep, jumped on the show with me, and people were just calling her, and she's trying to do the show from her phone.
While she's trying to do the show, they're calling her?
Yeah. Where are you at? We need to get you here. We need to do this.
So she's the secretary of the Utah Republican Party, yes, right? So if you guys want to go catch up on that and see what she's got going on, watch last week's show. I was not on in it. Yeah, tell him not to worry about any kind of on time. He's do what he has to. But I was not in it because I had to go weld some pipe. So yeah.
That's not code for anything either, guys.
No, it was technically
literally doing pipe.
Welding pipe, yeah. I mean, it's as fun as the other stuff sounds.
So, congratulations to Robert Axon and Stafford Palmieri, who was both reelected to run the state party. Congratulations to Phil Lyman for an excellent run, and Olivia Dawn. Both of them worked really, really hard. These positions aren't easy. They are a lot of work, a lot of reaching out to delegates. And it was a very close race. So all props to the convention team, Chris Knoll and Max Sims and Sean Milne and Tracy Shaw. Our very own Tracy Shaw ran the elections there. They did paper ballots. It was the best, well-run convention I've ever attended.
Okay, good.
Not a line. There were no lines to get.
Oh, sorry.
To get credentialed, and it was just so well run, and it was amazing. And Thomas Wright, our former party chair, he actually was running the meeting, and it brought me back to old times because that man he's amazing. He's amazing. And so our convention was 2 days prior, and I was so grateful to be voted again to have my seat as the party chair for our county. And our county delegates showed up. It was awesome. We elected a new vice chair, Kevin Mako, and we reelected Christina Branham. And then Mike Stewart is our new treasurer, and he's also been elected to be a member of our SEC, as was Chad Saunders, reelected. And a new face to the SEC is Kay Pratt. So we're very well covered in this county. We've got Republicans in the party that are very alike on our principles and our values, and then some are very, like, they just vote differently, and they all love the county. They all love the values of our party. So I'm very, very happy for the turnout. And I have to thank Chris Sloan for hosting my meeting.
Good.
We have to turn it over when we're up for election. We don't run our own election.
Oh, so someone else hops in and.
Yeah, Chris Sloan hopped in, and Chris has been my mentor for years. He was a party chair a couple chairs ago. And he's always been so great at running meetings, and he doesn't go off into tangents like I tend to do. So I'm grateful for him. It was great. We had Americans for Prosperity there. They had decided to come out and support the convention and have a booth there, as well as Kim Tafiti. And her VR organization.
Oh, good.
And they were awesome. And Matt Hymas was there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our electeds were there. And I kept saying, Matt, you need to go talk to Kim because I would love this at Excelsior. And they're going to actually be at the Twila Valley Patriot Camp, which is going to start on June 2nd through the 6th.
Okay. Virtual Horizons is?
Yes.
Are they going to... Well, that'd sure be cool if you could get some of their VR stuff.
They're actually teaching at our camp.
Oh, see, that's what I like to hear.
Yes, we're so excited. And I am just so lucky to know those ladies. I mean, aren't they amazing? Yes. And if you haven't seen the Virtual Horizon podcast we did with these ladies, with Angie and Kim, please, it's located on our page, and it was a fascinating interview. And I'm excited to see it in action, and I'm grateful that they got involved. I mean, they're not political, but they wanted to share Virtual Horizon with delegates of all types and members of the public that came to our convention. And it was just amazing of them to support us.
I was talking to a family member about them, and she knows both of them. She's been through some of their trainings through a third-party thing, but she's like nervous about the future and all that.
Who is it?
Not busting names out.
Oh, I thought you said a name.
I was talking to a
friend.
A family member, and I, and she's like, I just don't want to see the future like that, where kids are checked out of stuff and they're not involved. And I'm like, oh, well, I think we're heading that way no matter what.
Right. I mean, every school, they're using Chromebooks. They're online anyway, but this is a whole different way of learning. And I think it's going to reach a lot of kids that maybe are getting left behind.
Well, it's going to give opportunity to kids in areas that are more rural that don't have the opportunity.
Especially, I mean, they're what do we call it when you're doing a new business and you have your
venture?
Yeah, a prototype type thing. They did their first trial on members of the tribe, the local tribe on the Four Corners during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Kids that 2 hours they're in a bus to and from school, and
and also
Chrissy.
they can't get.
Hi, Chad.
They can't get the same level of not just teachers, but the level of different classes out there where they're a smaller school and they can't have that extra classroom for whatever. I mean, so much more they could do. I mean, what if just one of those kids wanted to pursue something in band? You could do band over that with a real instrument with you, and you can have a band teacher there, or arts and things like that.
These are kids that didn't even have internet. And to have Starlink donate and to have these and Meta, I mean, Virtual Horizon has gotten these great partners to help them. And it's so exceptional because these are kids that are living in really tough situations. They're so far from the outside world that if they wanted to be engineers or mathematicians, I mean, this opens up a door. And now they've got their first charter school open and they're accepting enrollment right now for this charter school. And I would love it if you guys are interested or want to learn more about it. I really think you should reach out.
Go to virtualhorizons.org, if I remember.
You think so?
I'll do a double check. But yeah, Virtual Horizons. Matter of fact, I can almost guarantee if you look up Virtual Horizons, it'll take you to it. And
they're a charter. So, I mean, they're getting the curriculum for the age group. And I would love it if our local schools had this option. And the enrollment is open now. So if you're interested, I know that the group has been showing up at different events just in the community to try to let people know what they're doing. And it's so cool. I can't wait for Governor Cox to get his eyes on this, because he's big on education. And obviously, I think he would support this just because it is so well put together.
Well, it's grades 4 through 8. And yes, enrolling is open up for this year. So,
it's like homeschool. It's home-based learning.
Yeah.
And so for anyone that's in homeschooling who want to add a different dynamic to your curriculum, I mean, this is so cool. Your kid is in a classroom with all the other kids. They have their avatars. The teacher, I mean, they're getting phenomenal teachers applying.
Oh, I'm sure.
And the teacher, I mean, your imagination is your limit. And if that, I mean, I can't even imagine. Hi, Adam.
Okay, and it's www.vhcsut.org. But if you just look up Virtual Horizons, it pops in. So it's Victor Hotel Charlie Sierra Uniform Tango.org.
Okay, so Adam says, "Booyah, Axon for the win. The guy hosting was awesome too." Yes,
and you mentioned
Thomas Wright, and he was a phenomenal chair. He just cuts right through. He doesn't. I mean, he knows the rules. He knows the people, and I think a well-run meeting is everything, because even the people that are dragging something out, I mean, they're passionate about that thing, and they don't want it to just go. So, to get it to a vote and to get everybody finished with our business. We voted early on to do all the business up front before elections. So they covered all the resolutions. I mean, it was great. I think most people who attended really, unless their guy was Phil Lyman and they were upset that he lost, but I just heard wonderful things from everyone who attended. And we had so many volunteers this time, guys. That makes so much of a difference.
I hope that the split that's going on in the Utah Republican Party is starting to heal a little bit. Yes, there is a fight that needs to be had. SB 54 is a fight that needs to be had. The lieutenant governor's office managing the election is a fight that needs to be had. These are all fights that need to be had. But if you guys just go at each other's throats so hard and don't allow deference or difference of opinion, you're going to end up the same place the left is just leaving. So maybe that's just the pendulum. Maybe that's what the pendulum is, what the pendulum does. The Republicans became a big tent party over the last, 5-6 years. And maybe now that they're in control, that tent naturally gets smaller when you get into power. Everyone saw what happened with the Democrats with that. Worked out well for them. Thumbs up. And maybe the Republicans are just going to repeat it. And maybe as the old man I am, I can just sit back and watch, knowing that I can predict the future by knowing the past.
Yeah. Do you want to know what's crazy? As I saw a video, speaking of the future, there's a video of a car show, completely AI.
Oh.
Put out by Google. The people that were doing the interview, AI. The background, the cars, everything was AI. And it was terrifying, because had someone not said this is completely AI, you would never know.
We need to do our intro, don't we?
Oh yeah, we should. Because Chad's got some comments already, and we'll get to those. Chad, thank you for commenting, Chad.
He keeps bumping intros on here, and we're gonna play through them. So Dwayne put an intro on here and some music. We're going to see what it is. If we don't like it, I will shut it off abruptly. Okay. I don't hear anything. Okay. Let's see what he put on this.
From the Great Basin to the Rockies to the four corners of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico, This is KMMU Main Street Media, Utah, coming to you live. You can find us on Rumble, YouTube, X, Facebook, and our website, kmmu.org. Please join our hosts, Jared and Holly, for Political Head Trauma, where if Head Trauma had a podcast, it would be just like this. Take it away, Jared and Holly.
Okay, so that was the intro that he put together. We got a pre-show thing. Yeah, he is definitely putting it together. All right, and so we got David Pine here, and we're just gonna.
We haven't even introduced. But yes, we've invited David Pine to come on, and we want to talk about. I want to talk about the Golden Dome. I want to talk about what's going on the front of the United States and what he can share with us. He's always such a good guest as far as letting the unwashed masses know what's going on in our government.
He's part of the president's. Let me read it. He's part of the task force on National and Homeland Security. He's an Army officer veteran, not just a schmuck veteran that doesn't know anything. He's an actual officer veteran that has been educated and stuff. And also he brings a lot of knowledge, both globally and domestically. And so we're just going to chat with him, kind of let him take us where he takes us for as long as he can.
He's a treasure that we have in this county. I think he's a treasure because
don't say treasure so much like Golem.
Lucky to have
you said
him.
it just precious. Like he's a treasure.
God. He is. I love that he lives in our county and he's got all this knowledge.
About to bite the head off of a fish in a cave. David, how are you?
Hey guys, you're cracking me up. Thanks for all the flattery.
You are a treasure.
You are. I just wouldn't say it like I was on a Harry Potter movie.
David, we appreciate you coming on. You are always so great to share with us information that we wouldn't get otherwise. And you've always been a reliable, very upfront source. So I appreciate you. And tell us what you've been doing.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me on your show. It's been a while, and it was great to see you, Holly, at the convention and at the actually both conventions, the county and the state convention. So, life's good. Foreign policy is keeping me busy. Lots of developments, with the Trump administration. Some good, some not so good. But certainly, I think when we last did an interview, I was able to come in, obviously in the studio, but it was a little more precarious, with the Biden administration. It just
way to softball that one across the plate. A little more precarious.
I think the sun is brighter. I think the mood of the country is better. I think that we're in a total, I'm just so happy we're here. I think there's a lot of things though. Please continue. I'd like to get into some of it with you.
Just, it felt like the world was on the verge of ending. There were multiple wars that could do that. And unfortunately that's still the case, but at least we have mostly competent leadership in the Trump White House. So we certainly have some bad apples that are stirring him in a wrong direction, particularly on Iran, which, we can discuss later. But I've been keeping busy, writing lots of articles. I had a recent interview. It was a monthly interview with John Twitchell on previously on talk radio or K-Talk 640 AM, where I used to guest host. Actually, I did host myself for several months, but guest hosted for like a decade earlier. And he said, "Wow, you've been busy." And he rattled off all the articles that I'd written over the last 30 days, and there were 9. So usually it's 3, but so there's been a lot of I've wanted to comment about. Haven't done anything this week, but I think I had maybe 3 last week alone.
Wow.
So all right, let's dive right in head first. What is let's go into the Iran thing. What is your thoughts on what's going on with Iran? What's the pushes heading in that way right now?
I think the whole Iran issue is just an Israeli created farce, and I say that as a lifelong supporter of Israel. I've opposed the creation of a Palestinian state up until probably just last year, when I finally realized that every nationality that's in a contiguous area that's not part of another state deserves its own statehood. But yeah, I think the whole idea that Iran is on the verge of developing nuclear weapons. I mean, I've heard that, and maybe 20 years ago was true, but I think they developed nuclear weapons many years ago, probably at least 10 years ago. I think they have a nuclear missile arsenal. I think the idea that we have to strike their nuclear missile silos is, it's almost, I wouldn't say it's suicidal, but it's the degree of risk that it places U.S. citizens in cannot be underestimated. And I think if someone were to ask me how the world ended, and if the world were to end once, I would tell them the most likely way we would end is with an Iranian cyber attack, because they do have the ability to shut down our grid for an extended period of time. Maybe not for good, but most likely it could be for good. They have super EMP satellites.
They don't have to do it for good. Isn't that right? I mean, just an extended period of time would destroy most Americans.
Yeah, you're right. So cyber attacks, depends on the type of cyber attack used. Denial of service is one of the probably the best ways to take us out with cyber attack in terms of our critical infrastructure. But
and it's also cheap.
It is. It's cheap.
Denial of service is just overwhelming for lack of a better term, overwhelming the website to where it crashes. And if they did that with somehow got in the electrical grid, but I mean, we've got to remember it was us and Israel that did, what was it called? Stuxnet. Was that right?
Yeah, I know it was definitely.
We did that to Iran.
I'm not aware if U.S. was involved in that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we were.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
I think it was during the Obama administration, so I'm not sure that they would have gone that far, if I'm correct with my dates.
Well,
yeah,
the Stuxnet. Well, let's be honest. I'm sure there's plenty of things that are done on the international sabotage side that the administration doesn't know about. We've seen that under Trump's last term. But Stuxnet, if I remember, I read a little story about it. They put this virus on a whole bunch of flash drives and then just kind of scattered the flash drives around Iran through saboteurs. Yeah. And someone picked it up and just popped it in their computer, and it infected the whole internet. It just went everywhere. And then from there, they had a window in when they wanted to target their centrifuges. And when the time came, crash.
Yeah. And I'm not opposed to those kind of cyber attacks. I think those are very effective and they're relatively low risk. Obviously, if we do something really major, like take down their grid, then, we face the same retaliatory response. But I think that's the way to do it. We strike their nuclear program with, cyber attacks that are targeted against that. And Israel's had some success with that. I think even sabotage and assassination, at that level, I think is those are doable things. But in terms of, massive bombing strikes that are sustained throughout a week, such as we saw maybe, when we bombed Iraq, I guess Desert Storm, it was, I think, a 6-week air campaign. But with the 2003 invasion, it was probably just several days, not even a week. But that's the kind of thing that can, ignite a regional war, pour gasoline on the fire. It's going to make Israel less safe. It's going to make the U.S. a lot less safe. Iran has multiple ways they could retaliate. They could close the Straits of Hormuz with, sinking ships in the strait. They could, that would obviously have a really bad effect on the U.S. economy. We go into recession if that was sustained. likely because the gas prices could spike, perhaps even double. And, they could target all 50 of our U.S. military bases in the Middle East. They could likely successfully strike, I would say, our carrier strike groups. So I don't think our ships would be sunk, but they could be disabled. They could catch fire. We could have dozens, if not hundreds, of U.S. Military casualties, perhaps even in the thousands potentially, because we do have such a large military presence in the region. And then more dangerously, as I mentioned, they could conduct the kind of cyber attacks or super EMP attacks that could really destroy us as a country and cause America to collapse. Or anything,
or even just a part, even if you just collapsed a seventh of the United States, that would handicap us on the global stage. I mean, if that happened, Taiwan falls. Not to mention much of Europe.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I've been warning about, is that a war with Iran is a green light for China to invade Taiwan. So it's not. That's why I say it would be World War III. It wouldn't just be a regional war. I don't think China would be able to resist the temptation, the window of vulnerability that we would create for ourselves by such a conflict with, obviously bombing Iran and having this massive naval and air war and potentially, ground war situations against Iranian proxies. That's a pretty huge effort. It's not like a full scale war with Russia in Ukraine if the U.S. were to send troops to fight there, but it's still a major effort that would consume, a large proportion of U.S. military resources and capabilities, which are very much more limited than Americans realize, I think.
So are you saying that that's on the table right now, that we potentially would be bombing Iran's nuclear sites? Has that been discussed with Homeland Security?
That wouldn't be Homeland Security.
Yeah.
Or whoever.
It'd be DOD.
But my question is, why would we risk this? What's the reward? It sounds like it wouldn't be much.
It does seem like what you said earlier. Israel is driving us to this, and Netanyahu has been driving us to this for 20 years now. He's come over, and every time he has a cartoon picture of a bomb, and he says in 3 years they're going to have a nuclear weapon, and then he says it again, the same thing. And it would definitely make life easier for Israel over there, but I think it would make life harder for the whole rest of the world.
I don't see to what end. Like,
we
have to work on the fact in our brains they already have a nuke. We already have to assume that. It's been so long, but even Israel, it's like going after your neighbor and trying to destroy them with something so toxic that it'll kill you too. Why would they want to invoke such an attack when they tend to have the ability to be damaged by it? Why not just let it be and let them build relationships with their surrounding countries, supportive, so that they're not making more problems in the Middle East? It just freaks me out.
Yeah, that's what's so sad, is because Iran, okay, I've always called them the mother of all terrorism. I mean, certainly they killed 800 U.S. soldiers in Iraq during the Iraq War. They are our enemy, just like China. Russia, I don't think is our enemy. I think they're an enemy we created, but I think Trump's changed that already, just with starting to normalize diplomatic relations with Moscow. But in the case of Iran, they're contained. Containment works. We've contained Iran. Nuclear deterrence works. I mean, on what planet does anyone believe that Israel, with the third largest nuclear arsenal or the fourth largest nuclear arsenal in the world behind the U.S., with 400 nukes, can't deter Iran if they have a dozen, or even 2 dozen or 3 dozen? I mean, it's just irrational. Israel has proven nuclear strike capabilities. They haven't admitted it officially for, obviously they don't want to be sanctioned, but everyone knows they have it. And, there's not an instance in world history where nuclear deterrence has not worked. I mean, the U.S. successfully deterred the Soviet Union with our nukes when we had nuclear superiority, and also when we had nuclear inferiority. We were still able to deter the Soviets, the Russians, the Chinese, the North Koreans, every country in the world, every enemy in the world that's had nukes that could potentially destroy us has been deterred. So yeah, it's just it would be war on false pretenses, and it's something conservatives need to stop.
Yeah, the neocon. I think your modern day conservatives are moving away from that mental image, but it's the neocons. It's your Democrats. My big thoughts are now, what I'm thinking more now is, after seeing what comes out of Ukraine and all that, I'm thinking, when you study the Japanese Russo War of what was it, 1901?
1904, yeah.
1904. When you study that, they say that was it was a study in modern warfare, because really it was the prelude to what World War I would be. I think we're seeing that now in Ukraine, just like the Civil War was a prelude to the Revolutionary War was a prelude to the Napoleonic Wars. They studied us over here doing that. And I'm thinking modern warfare is going to be, we're going to have to change the way we defend, because it's going to be drone strikes. It's not going to be trying to hold or decimate land. It's going to be these little kind of terror drone strikes like they're doing in Ukraine, both sides.
To cripple military and to force the people into a situation where chaos ensues. Essentially, you don't have to put a boot on the ground, and just a messing with their power grid could destroy humanity in that area, because we are so dependent on the digital world.
Yeah, I mean, there are probably 4 countries on the planet that can destroy us with cyber attacks. The former head of U.S. Cyber Command cited Russia and China specifically, and then they said there was a third country. I've guessed that that's North Korea, but I think Iran's cyber capabilities. I mean, they've had cyber attacks in the U.S. They've shut down our water purification distribution supply in multiple states. Obviously, that was a temporary attack, probably a probing attack, but they've demonstrated the capability to conduct major cyber attacks on the U.S. Given the fact that just with 9 key substations going down out of 55,000, if they know what those key substations are, I mean, even a terrorist attacks could take those out. And I've been warning for 20 years that maybe 25 years that Iran has had, they have dozens, perhaps hundreds of terrorist cells in the country that they could activate. And it's not just Iran, of course. It's maybe Hezbollah and Al Qaeda and different Iranian aligned terrorists. So if we want
probably more.
If we want
since the open borders of the Biden administration, we don't have any idea.
With battalions of Chinese special forces.
Oh, not just battalions, divisions. I mean, they have the equivalent of 2 group armies, by my estimation.
How scary is that?
Terrifying.
And where are they? Are they in groups of platoons, companies? Are they just in groups of squads spread out?
I think they're likely organized at the brigade level, located on Chinese farmlands. I mean, no one knows for sure. It could be battalion level, but we have Chinese farmland that they own that's right adjacent to 17 U.S. Military bases. And if you look at a map of the Chinese lands that they own, I think 30 to 35% of Utah's land is owned by China. So how scary is that? Including bordering on Tooele County and I think maybe in Tooele County, as well as By Hill Air Force Base. So we're, that should be a huge issue for Utah politicians. And I haven't heard a lot about that.
Well, Utah legislator did bring up the fact that they want to investigate the the land in Tooele County owned by the Chinese. And because full disclosure, I know the owner, and he's a great man, and I've never seen anything like that as far as people. I mean, most of the employees there aren't Chinese. However, I do want to know and make sure that all the land owned in our country, especially by military bases, is good, and it's at least owned by American citizens. You can't do that in China. You can't do that in Mexico. You can't go in as a citizen of America and buy their property. That's just, they see it as an act of Homeland Security, that if you're buying property next to a military establishment, especially, that you got to be on the up and up. So I know legislature did put something in place. I know our county council has been looking into the county stuff, but I haven't heard the end result to it. So I would be curious to see what all is going on there.
Yeah, and I mean, the Chinese, they have a Huawei cell tower in Washington, D.C., which the FBI reported in 2022 has the ability to not only intercept presidential nuclear command orders, but also to disrupt them. So potentially that cell tower could prevent nuclear launch orders from reaching the U.S. nuclear triad in the event of a nuclear strike.
Not to mention just the blackmail they could get on all our Congress people doing all those things that you hear about.
Oh,
yeah,
Congress,
I mean, obviously they have the goods on Joe Biden.
No, well, I mean, they didn't tell us that he was, brain mushed, but Ray Charles could have saw that.
Well,
yeah.
So this new announcement of the Golden Dome, do you know anything about that? I mean, the technology involved, I guess, is pretty amazing, but I'm curious what you think about that.
Well, that's been a huge issue for me, since I was in high school. I mean, I was a big supporter of SDI. The truth is, we've had the technology to build, a space-based missile defense system since the late 80s, or at least the early 90s. I mean, that's off-the-shelf technology. It's decades-old technology. Obviously Starlink, gives us greater potential with, the satellites weighing maybe a few hundred pounds that could potentially use for, small missile interceptors, relatively small. That can cheapen it, but it's something we should have done decades ago during the 1990s, and we just
when Reagan proposed it, right? He proposed Star Wars, and it didn't pass to where we did.
Yeah, the Democrats said it killed it in 1990. So years after he left, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure how serious he really was about. We had a national missile defense system back in 1975 called the Safeguard System, and Congress ordered it dismantled. But Reagan, he certainly wanted. SDI was really a research and development program during the Reagan administration. I don't think it was really planned to deploy that during the Reagan years. Maybe I think it was kind of a idea to do it maybe in the Bush era, and sadly that got killed. And then Clinton converted it to more of a ground-based system that was very limited, mostly theater capabilities, not national or homeland defense capabilities.
Didn't we help Israel create theirs?
Yes. We did. Yeah. So I worked in the missile. I was in the Missile Defense Agency as a consultant from 2003 to 2005 in Falls Church, Virginia. Actually, their headquarters was located in that area. But it was. I worked on some of the programs. I actually worked on some of the Arrow programs, the Iron Dome programs. And the crazy thing is, I was friends with an Israeli colonel who was the military attaché in D.C. From a previous position when I was in the U.S. Army headquarters staff, and they would, we would fund the development of the missile defense technology, and they wouldn't share it with us. So this whole Israel relationship, it's been a one-way. An alliance to me, a true alliance is two-way. We help them, they help us. Pretty much throughout our history, we've helped Israel, but they've done nothing for us. In fact, they've sold our advanced military tech to China over the last 25 years, perhaps.
Yes.
Farther than that.
Also, Russia Russia got the nuclear bomb through Israel.
That's insane. And so they created their
well,
Iron
it was
Dome
stolen.
to protect themselves from
I
us.
don't think the government of Israel was involved with it, but it was two dual citizens, wasn't it? Was it the Rosenbergs who took it, and they ended up getting hung for it? But it was.
But look at it this way: if we help them develop the Iron Dome, but then they don't give us the information or share it back and forth, it essentially the Iron Dome will protect them from us.
Well, I don't want to make this an Israel bashing show, because I'm ambivalent on ideas like that. But I was listening to a show where a recently retired CIA agent was talking about certain things, and in the CIA, as Israel is listed as an intelligence threat.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So the U.S., I think, gave Russia, the Soviets, the bomb-making plans, as well as bomb-making materials for the atomic bomb as part of Lend-Lease during the last 6 months of Lend-Lease during World War II. So
we did, huh? That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean,
it was only Stalin, but of course it was FDR, and if anyone liked the smell of Stalin's taint, it was that jerk. Oh, sorry, did I say all that out loud?
Yeah, I mean, it was really Truman was president then, but it was FDR's appointee Harry Hopkins that did it. We had so many traitors. I mean, you just mentioned a few: the Rosenbergs, Alger Hiss, Harry Hopkins, so many more. Our entire military and the OSS was heavily communist penetrated. I mean, we hired communists and actually helped communists take over in multiple countries, including, of course, North Vietnam, Yugoslavia, and different countries.
China.
There's so much American blood spilled over this ridiculousness. Like, peace through strength should be our goal as Americans.
Right.
Not let's choose leaders like Saddam Hussein. Let's put him in place, and only to kill him years later. I mean, all of this is so corrupt. It makes me sick. And I mean, governments will do this, but I think, how does the American citizen feel safe in this country? And do we see an opportunity for this to turn around? I mean, is Trump going to turn this around, do you think? Or are we just doing more of the same?
I'd like to say that the Trump administration's foreign policy represents a huge break from the Biden, the globalists. And I would have said that probably 2 months ago, but he's increasingly reverting more to the neocon direction. So he's starting to adopt kind of the Bush foreign policy, which was, fighting forever wars, bombing other countries left and right, starting new wars. I mean, obviously started a war with Yemen that didn't need to happen, that depleted a lot of our long-range precision strike capabilities. We need to deter China. But, obviously the main one is Iran. If he follows, and he's threatened so many times. I mean, you have to take the president at his word. If he says, if Iran doesn't accept our ultimatum and sign the deal that we presented to him, because we have presented a deal to Iran, and they've said it's unacceptable because it wouldn't allow them to enrich at the low levels necessary to maintain their nuclear program, then we're going to bomb them. He's threatened war left and right. And I, honestly, as much as I love Trump on Iran, I just think he's out to lunch. He's just been a bully. He's acted like an adolescent, and it's not just him. It's all the neocons at his administration that are basically not Israeli agents. Obviously, I think Waltz probably was an Israeli agent in many ways, but
that was kind of proven to be true, and he got fired for it.
Yeah, that's right. He was working with Netanyahu behind Trump's back, and trying to.
And I don't want to make this sound like we're naked. I'm not a fan of Netanyahu. And I'm not a fan of Netanyahu because we've had 20 years of experience with him on and off.
That's right.
And he's never been a benefit to my nation. All he's done is beg for me to spend my blood and treasure for him. And he hasn't.
It sounds like Zelensky, just in a wider time frame.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I've made the point that and I just want to emphasize what you said is that I'm a strong supporter of Israel. I'm a very strong opponent for Netanyahu because he's obviously he's mass murdering civilians, women and children, but I don't want that to be representative of what Israel represents.
Sure.
Because even though the right wing lunatics, and I say that kind of jokingly because I'm a far right conservative in my own right, but just the type of conservatives that have, I guess, nationalists, ultranationalists that have, been part of the Netanyahu regime, just have taken Israel on a very warlike turn that could really bite them in the butt, in the short to long term, inviting greater attacks on Israel. Obviously, Syria, Israel and Turkey, mainly Turkey, helped convert that to a Al Qaeda led state. And, I'm not sure I agree with Trump lifting sanctions on an Al Qaeda state leader, that was former Al Qaeda. But just with Netanyahu, he's just not my favorite Israeli leader. I'd rather see a labor leader, to be honest. I think their labor leaders are pretty good.
Sorry. Would you say that Netanyahu is right on the fact that, the attack on October 15th was made by Iran?
October 7th?
Yeah.
Sorry, October 7th.
Well, so what I've really learned since doing a deep dive on that whole issue is obviously there's no justification for the evil Hamas terrorists that, mass murdered nearly 1,200 Israeli civilians on October 7th, 2023. And, we're never going to forget that. But, in Israel, I do think Iran was kind of gave them the green light. I don't know if they masterminded it, but certainly I reported at the time that Iran gave their proxies a green light to do that.
And the money, right?
Yeah. The background we don't hear about is that Israel has been blockading Gaza for 16 years prior to that. So at the time I reported on it, I said this was an unprovoked terrorist attack. There's no reason for them to do that. And then learning what I've learned now, it was clearly provoked, still unjustified, still evil, still, terrorists. And we have to condemn them and we want to get Hamas out of there. But, wars don't take place in a vacuum. I think that's one thing Americans don't understand, especially neocons, is that, Russia obviously was provoked to invade Ukraine. There's never been a more provoked war in history. Biden he's the common denominator between both Russian invasions of Ukraine, both in 2014 and 2022, because he authorized the coup, obviously, in Ukraine, according to a book called The War in Ukraine. That was written by liberal Democrats, reporting on that. And then, of course, Putin offered to not invade Ukraine if he would just provide a written guarantee on the behalf of the U.S. that that Ukraine would never join NATO, and we could have done that at zero cost because, all the reports that I've read, Biden has told Zelensky repeatedly that Ukraine would not join NATO in the foreseeable future, and we haven't seen that happen, obviously. And there's multiple countries that oppose it. Instead,
what was it, 3 weeks before he invaded? The vice president at the time, Kamala Harris, went over in Belgium, was given a speech in Belgium, and said Ukraine is joining NATO.
Yeah, she poured oil or poured fuel on the fire. He basically went up to a raging bull and waved the red flag or whatever, and
I think it was 100% intentional. I think it was, honestly, I believe most of these wars are intentional. You find out about before Saddam invaded Kuwait. Kuwait had been drilling across the border into Iraq, and Saddam called our State Department head. What was that lady's name?
April Gillespie.
Yeah, and
US
she said,
Iraq.
Yeah, and she said, "Do it, invade."
Yeah, she said the U.S. would not take a position if Iraq invaded Kuwait. So that was.
But then he got mad because he used chemical weapons. And
nope. I think it was a ploy so that we could spend a little bit of that old military industrial complex money. made a lot of people rich. That war, especially with very low cost to us, very low cost.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of military casualties, I think it was a few hundred at most. It was a 4-day ground operation, maybe 163, if I recall.
Yeah, and I think most of them were vehicle accidents.
Yeah,
all of we had 3 people that were shot while their battle buddy cleaned their weapon in the tent.
Oh, this is horrendous that this is where we're headed, because most of us voted for peace through strength. Yes, we need to have a well-trained, well-armed, ready military. Absolutely. But we don't need to babysit the world and have our hands in everybody else's business, nor should we be creating leaders in countries and deciding winners and losers. I mean, for the average American, and I'm speaking probably for a lot of people watching right now, we don't understand, first, the argument for Palestine and Israel. It's been hundreds, 1,000 years. They've been at each other's throats. But add to it, all we've seen is an attack on Israel with a lot of people, innocent people murdered. And now we've got years, and even the hostages aren't all back. We don't even hear about the hostages. Trump was really forceful about it when he first got in, and some got brought back. But even now, there's still hostages. And Israel's almost using that to drive the ability to secure the Gaza Strip, but to keep it in rubble. All of this just feels so crazy to someone. I don't understand all of it. I know a lot of people don't, but you guys know about the history a lot. And I love the Israeli people. I think they're an amazing country. There's so much happening that I don't think the average person understands.
Yeah, I've been to Israel. I went to Israel as part of a Department of Defense delegation back in 2001. I was in a hotel that was, just meters, probably, I don't know, 100 meters or a few hundred meters away from the discotheque that was bombed 10 days earlier. I think it would have been in either May or June of 2001. That was, obviously before 9/11. But, I mean, they're great people. They're amazingly resilient. I mean, for such a small country, I mean, they're a regional power. I mean, they have, again, the 4th largest nuclear arsenal in the world, one of the most impressive militaries in the world. I mean, in terms of military power, I mean, they completely dominate much larger neighbors. And, obviously their capability for innovation and so much else, so many other things is renowned. So, I don't dislike Israel at all. I just dislike Netanyahu, and I think Netanyahu is really behind this. Because Netanyahu he's been charged or investigated for corruption issues, and if he were to lose power, he would likely go to prison because he is corrupt. But he is really the driving force in terms of what I consider the greater Israel project, and trying to, including, unfortunately, with President Trump and scheming to, forcibly deport the Gazans, either 1 million, according to the latest U.S. plan, perhaps up to 2.3 million, all of the Palestinians, and resettle it with the Israeli settlers. But it's, the crazy thing is Trump had the best peace plan of all with Gaza. It was actually written by Biden, essentially, but the Biden administration. But Trump was the one who pressured, sent Steve Witkoff to pressure, the Israelis to sign off on it the day before he was inaugurated. I mean, that could have been one of his greatest legacies as a peace president if he had pressured the Israelis to honor that ceasefire agreement. Because it's really the key. It's good for Israel. It's good for the Palestinians. It's bad for Hamas. They have to give up power. It wasn't explicit they would have to disarm, but they did agree to disarm for a period of several years under the agreement. So basically, and they obviously released all the hostages. So it was a win-win for both sides, at least for the Palestinian people. It wasn't a win, again, it was a defeat for Hamas, but a win for the Palestinian people, and a win for Israel, and a win for the US. And Trump decided to give Israel the green light to violate it and reinvade. And now they're talking about flattening all of Gaza, occupying all of Gaza. They've now occupied over 50% of Gaza, whereas they'd previously withdrawn all their troops. And the Gazan people are starving to death. There's been at least 37,000, maybe 38,000 women and children that have been terror bombed or starved to death so far. And, granted, that's not a large number by historical standards. I mean, there's 6 million Jews that Hitler killed. And so that, I push back when I hear people, even fellow conservatives, call that genocide, but it is racially motivated. It's racially motivated mass killing, and there's no reason for it. And even the Israelis have admitted, Israeli military leaders have admitted that 80% of the casualties since they reinvaded in March have been civilians. So if the U.S. were doing that, and we were killing 4 times more civilians than we were, enemy fighters, I think that'd be an issue. And the crazy thing is, Israel's media is reporting that the number of Hamas fighters is actually much higher than it was before the war than it is right now. So they had 32,000 Hamas fighters, maybe a lot less than that before the war. Now they have 40,000.
Well, I mean,
actually replenished their ranks. They've lost up to probably 15,000 killed, and then they've added up around 25,000 new fighters. So
what happened to us after 9/11?
Exactly right.
They were turning people away at the recruiter offices.
Our own generals were reporting that our policy had recruited far more terrorists than we had succeeded in killing. So that's what counterinsurgency warfare is for anyone. I never got to serve in combat because I wasn't in the military at the time that we invaded Iraq the second time. But I think a lot of people, will tell you that counterinsurgency wars are a big mistake.
Yes, they are. I think the ultimate soldier in those counterinsurgency wars are the what do they call them? Civil operation soldiers, the ones that go in and win the hearts and minds, and they become like administrative helpers to mayors to get plumbing and water and electricity. That's how you win them over. You don't win them over with bullets and bombs.
So where are we at? I mean, if this administration is considering an attack on Iran, I mean, that is not good for the midterms. I mean, this is a 180 to what he ran on. I mean, peace through strength around the world.
So he's just like every other president.
I can't buy that, because the mandate of his election, people are tired of the constant death that surrounds war, and especially what we've seen with Ukraine. I mean, I think people are exhausted that their taxes are going to fund these wars and are going for all this death, of wiping a generation out on both sides. And I just don't know, where do we go from here?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, Trump's going to pay a very heavy price if he goes to war with Iran, and the economy takes a nosedive, even temporarily, for 3 to 6 months during a protracted war with Iran. With gas prices spiking heavily, and potentially thousands of U.S. casualties, perhaps even millions. I mean, we don't want to think about that, but a sustained cyber attack or super EMP attack could result in millions of Americans' death. Dying. So, he would be considered one of the world's worst presidents in U.S. history. And of course, we're speculating. We're assuming that his threats are legitimate, because national leaders do bluff from time to time, and President Trump is known to have bluffed in the past. So he said he's 99% wants peace, but then every time he says that if Iran doesn't accept our deal, then we're going to bomb the crap out of them. The more he says it, the more you believe he's telling the truth, and that's his actual intent. But we won't know until the deadline's already passed, right? So it's been over 60 days since he announced that deadline. and he said we were very close to reaching a peace agreement, and then he kind of increased the demands on Iran, and they basically have almost left negotiations because our demands are too great for them. And foreign policy is about, you have to be a realist. Dr. John Mearsheimer is I listen to him every week. He's he's such a great foreign policy realist theorist, and so much of what I believe is what he says. So like I believed what he was saying before, and I just didn't always have a firm theory behind it, and he's able to articulate like why it is. But we need realists. We need people like J.D. Vance who said that there's no winners on the Western side with a war with Iran. Not people like Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz that are.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine what a ground war would look like there. I've seen pictures of it. It's a big place. It's got mountains on both sides of it. I mean, Iraq had an awful time in a land war there, and Iran was so far behind him militarily, and we were supporting Iraq, and Iraq got pushed out. And could we beat Iran? Sure.
At what cost?
Oh, wow. Yeah, the cost of that would be so heavy.
I don't think we could, truly beat Iran without nuclear weapons. I mean, we can't invade them. We have 2,500 troops in Iraq. And I think that's pretty much all the troops we have bordering Iran. So I guess we could surge, 500,000 troops in Iraq. 500,000 troops we don't have, obviously, because the army is, it used to be a lot, 750,000 when I was in the army, and even 775, and now it's about 450. So it's,
I thought that they've gotten back to getting people in, and I thought that people are signing up.
Yeah,
and the number I just quoted you was pre-Trump, so we could have very possibly added 20,000 army troops by now.
Well, hopefully he waits the 11 weeks it takes to get the average infantryman through basic and AIT.
Hey, we should probably read some comments because
we've got a lot of comments rolling in.
Thank you for your comments, everybody.
Yeah.
Please like and share, and if you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button because it really helps. And
we got questions for you, a lot of them, questions and comments. So we'll be passing these on to you. So we'll start off with YouTube. Jordan Lott says, we need to have peace leaders in government. We need a strong military defense and peace throughout the world. Wars always make money for the military industrial complex and has a lot of money and power. And then he's asking, is BlackRock involved in this war with Iran?
Well, again, to restate, we're not at war with Iran. Trump has threatened it so many times that it feels real. It feels like it's around the corner. But probably the best thing that I've seen is that he withdrew the B-2. So we really can't. We're not going to do any military strikes on Iran without the B-2. So we had 6 B-2s, which are approximately a third of the 19 B-2 nuclear bombers we have. And the B-2 is the only aircraft that is able to carry the 15-ton GBU-57 penetrators that can, deep underground penetrators that could really even have a chance of seriously damaging or destroying nuclear facilities or underground missile sites, which are deep underground. So we don't have the capabilities to successfully conduct a deep strike campaign in theater at this point. But of course that can change. I mean, it would take basically 24 hours to redeploy those, assuming they're flight ready and all that. So that's why I don't think war with Iran is imminent, but that can change. But it's just so hard because it's true. It's very true. The Trump administration is always giving mixed signals. With regards to the war in Ukraine, he says he wants it over, but he refuses to negotiate with the Russians in terms of the peace terms. We gave them a 22-point peace plan, and they said there's multiple points we've already told you that are unacceptable to us. And, he's like, that's our final offer. And now it's between you and Zelensky to negotiate. And of course, that's never going to happen because Trump refuses to pressure Zelensky, and he hasn't he just signed a 10-year security agreement with them. That he calls the minerals agreement, where we were bound to by treaty to sell them military arms and weapons for the next 10 years. So seems like he's willing to keep fighting that Biden's war there. And with Iran, he says he really wants peace, but then we're going to bomb the crap out of him. So you just don't know. You really don't know. Trump, I'm not sure if Trump really knows. I think he has an amazing plan, and his overall foreign policy grasp in terms of a grand strategy are beyond impressive. His plan to divide the Sino-Russian alliance by making peace with Russia and Ukraine, and then making them a geostrategic partner. I mean, that's something I've been calling for since 2009. I mean, it's just brilliant. But yet he doesn't know how to get there. And I've actually was able to get one of my peace proposals on Ukraine to one of the Trump National Security Cabinet officials, and obviously nothing came of it. I haven't, certainly the Trump peace plan does incorporate some of the ideas that I had, but I mean, without a doubt, none of I think they had those ideas in mind already. But you just wish you had a crystal ball to see, where he's going to take us, because it's just completely unclear at this point.
Here's one of the things I think Trump's strength is that I think he views our global positioning like a businessman would. So he's making deals like a businessman would. And he's used to being the head of a company where the underlings have the goal of moving the company in that positive direction. So as the business leader, he has these good visions, but some of the underlings we have in the government position don't match those. So like with that guy
doing stuff rogue.
Like that guy that was working with Netanyahu.
With Waltz, right.
With Waltz and things like that. Now, like Hegseth, I like Hegseth's words that he was saying at that time too. They were both speaking about this isn't a fight that we need to get involved in. So I think that maybe that's the weakness, and maybe he needs to do the continual flushing those people out until he finds people that works towards the goals he lays out. Because it's a whole different animal than in a business. Because if I worked for a business, I want that business to succeed because that's my income, that's my wealth. But if you're in government, some of those guys, some of their wealth aren't from what's best for the nation.
Right.
Yeah, I wrote an article on November 13th after he announced his initial cabinet picks. It was entitled "Return of the Neocons," because the neocon cabinet members that he picked during his first term really defeated all of his best foreign policy ideas. I mean, he wanted to withdraw from Syria, he wanted to withdraw from Iraq, he wanted to withdraw from Afghanistan. Afghanistan happened, several months later, and it was done in a horrible manner that Trump never would have done. He would have pulled us out,
almost
left
backwards,
Bagram at the last, so no one got killed. So he would have done it real smart, in a real smart way. But and now he's done the same thing, and I was very worried that what has happened would happen because he does have so many neocons, and the neocons really dominate.
Will you define a neocon for people who don't know?
Yeah, so the neoconservatives, they basically left the Democrat Party over military spending and wars, and kind of initially I identified with I never identified as a neocon, but I viewed the neocons very positively before the Iraq War, because it was like Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld.
Oh yeah,
they wanted a strong nuclear capability for the U.S. They wanted peace through strength. They had been at the forefront of kind of the Reagan administration. Some were critical of Reagan for appeasing the Soviets, but others, helped him negotiate some of the deals that helped Gorbachev decide to collapse the Soviet Union and give up all 20 captive nations from the Soviet Empire. And that was a huge victory for the U.S., even though we didn't really make it happen militarily, so it wasn't like a surrender. But then the 2003 Iraq War happened, and that just really soured me on them. But basically, a neocon is someone who typically supports, large deficit spending, high spending for social programs and military programs as well. But they basically, there's not, they want to keep fighting forever wars. They've never met a war they haven't liked. And the problem is, there's a saying that goes, personnel is policy. So if you pick the right people, they execute on the president's policy. If he had picked people that he didn't just consider loyalists, but he were actually in line with his America First foreign policy agenda, like J.D. Vance, if every cabinet member was J.D. Vance, we wouldn't be making stupid mistakes left and right. The war in Ukraine would have ended perhaps 3 months ago with Putin-Trump summit. We would have accepted most of their terms, but we would have said, you're not getting any more Ukrainian territory, and held a firm line on that. And, that war has killed, and Holly, you alluded to this earlier in the program, that war has killed about, there's been 2 million Ukrainian casualties by the figures that I've seen, of which 750,000 have been killed in action, versus about 300,000 casualties on the Russian side. So it's very heavily weighted against Ukraine, and they don't have any, their reserves are drying up. The Russians are advancing on multiple fronts. And just as of today, the big news is the Russians have partially occupied their 9th Ukrainian oblast. So we talk about the 5 Ukrainian oblasts they control, what they've now partially controlled another 4. So they're well on their way. I mean, it's very incremental, still very incremental in terms of Russian advances, but the capability exists because their military is so much superior in terms of troops and obviously artillery and missile supremacy and various other things like that they do have the capability to conquer much, if not most of Ukraine by October, November.
And that's even with the United States helping Ukraine with weapons and
it's money. A generation lost.
Yeah, this is just not what people voted for. People wanted this peace the second he took office, and I know he can't control that. He can't control other countries and what they do, but I keep feeling like the Obama period where it was, I'm drawing my red line in the sand and then nothing happens, and then he redraws the line and redraws the line with the hostages over in Palestine, with Ukraine and Russia, with Iran, China. These lines are getting pushed and pushed. And I know he's in 4D chess, as people will say, but if he does not have a cabinet and his generals and everybody working towards his goal, they can go rogue on him. And it's a shadow government running our even President Trump's administration if we cannot get this under control.
Yeah, I mean, there's still he hasn't finished draining the swamp. He not only didn't finish draining the swamp, but he hired a bunch of new swamp creatures. Now, granted, those swamp creatures are singing Trump's tune, but so did Mike Pence. I mean, I loved all the things that Mike Pence was saying, and he turned out to be a complete deep state rat. Just a horrible neocon. America last. But he was he was talking about America first. He was. Everything Trump said, he echoed it. And I don't think, to be fair to Rubio and Ratcliffe and General Kellogg, I don't think they're not turncoats like Pence was, but to that extent. But in terms of policy, I think they kind of are.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. But of course, there's other pressures on Trump, which I was kind of hoping that this being he's not going to be able to run again, that he would be able to not give in to people who felt they had sway over him because they donated and things like that. I don't know. We'll have to see what's going to happen there. But let's run through some more comments, and then I want to ask you some other questions about some other fun stuff. Okay, this is hearkening back to before you come on, we were talking a little bit about Virtual Horizons. It's a virtual reality charter school that's here in Utah.
It's amazing. Actually,
a couple of ladies
County.
from Tooele started this school. So it's cool stuff. But Melanie Feltz-Fagan says, she said she's afraid of AI. She watched The Terminator as a kid.
We talked about an AI video I watched put out by Google's AI system, where it's a car show, and you wouldn't know that it was absolutely all AI.
I still think
people, the interviews, the cars. There's one part of the video where the guy's giving the baby a bottle and his hand just looks a little bit weird, but they have all the fingers and everything, and it looks, you wouldn't know, and it's terrifying.
Think almost all of, well, not all, I would say a dominance of the stuff that comes out of China as far as look at our technology with our cars. I think a lot of that is AI. That's just my personal feeling. But yes, The Terminator was an excellent documentary. Hands down. Dan LaRoque says right side all the way. Melanie laughs. Thomas George Pullman, he's our friend from Germany. He says, hello, friends, best regards. And then Melanie says that David, the treasure. Yes.
And I want to thank Daniel and Thomas and Melanie and Chad and all of you that are making comments right now. I've got new faces on here. This is so great.
Yeah. Melanie says she agrees with David. It was feeling very ominous. I think talking about Iran. Okay, Thomas says, now Thomas is one of, have you heard of Liberland? Okay, no, Liberland is a little place, I think it's between, why do I always forget? Croatia and Czechoslovakia. It's a little island that was undeclared, and some people kind of went and declared it as a kind of a libertarian nation. And it's an interesting thing. And at a future show, we'll try to get Tom.
Yeah, David on our show that was was
David Weiss.
He was the other talk show host.
Yes.
He's actually a citizen of Liberland.
Yes, and so is Thomas. Thomas is
from Germany as well.
Yes. Thomas says, regards to the States, you have now in Vegas the biggest Bitcoin conference. The current Bitcoin price today is $107,229 with a 24-hour trading volume of 49 million.
No, that'd be a billion.
Billion. I don't know. That's a lot of commas, but 107,000.
Well, that's almost the record.
What do you mean?
I think the record is 108.
Is it really? Ooh. Melanie says, what's that?
I really missed out on that.
We all did.
Brother. I was saying and I was like, oh, that seems like a lot of money.
Gosh, I wish I'd have bought it. Well, the first time I heard about it was like $5.
First time I heard it was 300, and I was like, I need to buy this. And my husband said, oh, that's not going to be around long. I mean, we can't even talk about it.
I was listening to it on the radio, and they're talking about Bitcoin. I'm like, what is a Bitcoin? I didn't even have a comprehension of it. Melanie says, I will neither confirm or deny that we had something to do with that.
I had that same exact thought, Melanie, when David was saying, well, I don't know if it sounded like I can either confirm or deny this regarding Iran and the potential of nuclear weapons or
the Stuxnet. Stuxnet. Yeah. The theory is that we were involved with it. The thing that's cool to me is essentially they just dropped garbage. Those little pin drives or thumb drives
all over the place. Right?
But the thing is that Stuxnet is in every computer on Earth right now.
Really?
It was a global infection.
That feels like, for its time, that it was quite extraordinary to be able to infect and penetrate their system.
She says, I hope our government is taking measures in case this happens. It sounds to me like it's not an if, it's a when. So it's not an and.
It's not an if, it's when.
Yeah. And drones and robots, I think that's the future of warfare. It's so much cheaper, so much more mobile, and you don't have to feed a drone.
And the people can get on board easier if it's not their kid they're sending across the country. Not that it's right, but I think the United States citizen who mandated that we get out of these wars and stop being, in charge of the world, they may change their tune if it's, oh, my kid is controlling a drone in Nevada that's actually in the middle of a war overseas.
Well, and these drones are these fly-by-wire drones. That's a new thing. We're not going to see intimate drones that are remote controlled. I don't think. I think they're too susceptible to being jammed, and then they essentially fall out of the sky. We're going to see the fly-by-wire that things are using in Ukraine right now.
Yeah, and you got to be like, I don't know, 30 miles away from where it flies. Those are I'm not sure what the longest range of fiber optics drone is, but I wouldn't imagine it's more than 50 miles.
No, and there's a company out of Utah that does that.
That's cool.
For the Ukraine, but it's a company out of Utah. We had the guy on the show that runs it. Remember the guy?
Yeah.
She says, we have been so infiltrated with the borders being open for so long. The Chinese own Long Beach Harbor. Yes, they do. They own so much. Yeah, we are. Man, I think about that so much. Like how many, and these are special forces level troops. They're not just going to send regular troops over.
But what is it going to take for them to get awakened or told, hey, it's go time? And then what happens are they all over small town United States? Because that's where people in our, a town like ours, there's a lot of well-armed people. And is it like Red Dawn where
I would say they would attack infrastructure. They would attack like Hill Air Force Base. That's a big mechanic base. Take that down. That hurts our response capabilities.
We have nuclear weapons there. So, yeah, they're going to take that out for sure.
Yeah. So much they can do.
We have nuclear weapons at Hill Air Force Base?
We have a underground nuclear storage facility based on what I've been told at Hill. Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of military installments here in Utah, right?
A lot of experienced helmets, you said?
Military
installments. We've got, I think it was Glenn Beck that was talking about top places in the United States that that people would have to attack because of the military installment in each
installation.
Utah was one of them. And I was blown away, but apparently what is our Utah's got? It's not air, what is it? What type of military?
Well, our Army, our National Guard is artillery. And special forces.
And we have MI too, military intelligence.
Yeah, they're tied in with but our main military, our main offering on the National Guard side is artillery.
And so, just that puts us in a category that would make us susceptible.
The big thing that makes us susceptible is Hill Air Force Base.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, Hill Air Force Base is the biggest installation we have.
And just for the Hill Air Force Base is a huge, what is it, F-15 mechanic shop up there? Is that what it is? Or F-16?
I think they have F-35s.
Yeah, but we do all the mechanicking for one of the jet series. Take that down and
you deplete some of our air force.
Yeah, you deplete our ability to, wrench on jets.
Yeah, I think we're also designing and building the Sentinel ICBM there, or will do that. So there's a lot of reasons they'd want to take that out.
Yeah,
I think it's a kind of a supply base for Air Force transports.
Yeah, and Twilla Army depots down here pressing shells, so they're making bullets for any war fighting.
But
Dougway's testing stuff.
Yeah, the Chinese troops issue. That when Trump talks about illegal immigration, we have 25 million illegal immigrants, and he'd have to be deporting 500,000 a month to get them all out. But ultimately, the only ones that really matter to us in terms of national security, obviously there's the low-level rapists and murderers and gang members and potential terrorists.
And there's a level above that. You've got the radical Islamic kind of terrorist dreamers above that, but the top level is definitely the Chinese, 100% the Chinese.
Yeah, and there's about 100,000 likely Chinese troops in our country, and on paper they only have 50,000 special forces troops. So half those troops could be regular army or airborne troops. But I mean, they could very possibly have their entire 50,000 special forces troops, basically a whole group army of troops that could be used for assassinations and sabotage and taking out our critical infrastructure and
They could
capturing key military installations, maybe even taking down some of our nuclear weapons sites. I mean, the possibilities are limitless.
They could be used like our special forces. They could be used to recruit Antifa and send them out as force.
Absolutely. So they could be used as force multipliers. Where I actually wrote a book that was never published with the Pulitzer Prize winning author by the name of Bob Skimman, former U.S. Army military intelligence major that fought in the Korean War. He's since passed, probably 10 years ago. But we basically wrote a book that talked about Chinese invasion of the U.S. Pacific coast, where they use super EMP weapons to take out the West Coast grid or the Western grid, and then landed millions of troops invading California primarily. And in the book, the reason I think that, so he submitted the manuscript, it was 1/3 finished, and he submitted to 8 publishers that had published his books before, so he had no reason to believe they wouldn't accept it. Not one of them would touch it. And I think the reason is, so I was responsible for most of the kind of the outline of the book, and then he actually penned it, into novel form, because I'm not a good novelist.
So was it a fictional novel that you're?
Yeah. It was a fictional novel. It was a novel about a Chinese invasion of the U.S. in 2021. And in the book, I postulated that an Obama-like, a black Illinois senator was elected president. And I'd never even heard of Obama before. It was before anyone knew about him outside of Illinois. So
that's crazy.
And then he withdrew. So that Obama-like president also reduced our nuclear arsenal size down to 1,500 nuclear weapons, and that's exactly what Obama did. And I think there was maybe one or other 2 things that I kind of predicted in the book. And
that had to freak you out a little bit.
Yeah, I was kicking myself like, man, if I got this published, I'd be a millionaire. I'd be interviewed on Fox News, after he got elected. But
whatever, you'd be drawn into the National Security Council and questioned.
Yeah. How'd you know this is all going to happen?
Yeah. What's going on here, Mr. Nostradamus?
Why didn't you publish it? Is it because he passed away, or?
No,
he said the publishers wouldn't.
They rejected it, and it was
you can publish it now.
You know why they wouldn't publish it? Because it was about China.
Well, so I think it was because, so in the book, basically the Mexican, like the Latinos, took over the 4 southwestern states and declared independence, and basically invited the Chinese to invade them, to protect them from, United States military forces that would be trying to defeat the secessionist forces and keep them part of the U.S. So, I mean, that was pretty controversial. Having an illegal immigrant 5th column. I have a scene like, this was written in 2004, by the way, but
wow,
there was a scene where some illegal immigrants helped to capture one of our nuclear missile submarines intact. I think it was the USS Nevada, because that, for people, Pearl Harbor aficionados, USS Nevada, it was a battleship that tried to escape the bombing and head out to sea, and they were bombed and sunk before they could do that. But basically, the Chinese capture one of our nuclear missile submarines with the help of an illegal immigrant 5th column. And back then, you just can't criticize illegal immigrants. They're like, we saw them with the Democrats. I mean, they have more rights than U.S. citizens under the Biden.
Yeah, back then was 2 years ago, even.
Yeah,
if the Democrats had their way, they'd have it now.
Okay,
it's crazy.
Let's read through these because this is fascinating.
Melanie says, yeah, if you look at where the bases are, you'll see land adjoining owned by the Chinese. Yes. There's sleeper cells.
There's Kim.
Yep. Kim, she's one of the ladies that runs that virtual that Virtual Horizons school.
And Kim, we did talk about it, and everybody we shared the website, so anyone would like to consider their kid for enrollment, we've directed people to go check it out because it is quite
just look up Virtual
incredible.
Horizons. It takes you right there, especially if you're in an underserved school area, see what they can offer. And they've also got a sister company. Kim, pop on there and tell us the name where they can take the one-off classes. Thomas says, I think we are experiencing a completely new form of warfare in Ukraine with drones and cyber attacks, hypersonic weapons, and I think we'll soon see acoustic weapons as well. These produce extremely loud noises that can injure or repel people or animals. They are often used for crowd control. Ultrasound weapons. These are sound waves with frequencies above the audible range for humans. They can be used for pest control or medical applications. Infrasound weapons. These generate sound waves with frequencies below the audible range that can cause discomfort or disorientation. And he asks, can the Golden Dome help?
That's a great question.
Yeah, so the Golden Dome is one of the most ambitious and really laud-worthy initiatives that the Trump administration has proposed. They're talking about deploying a nationwide missile defense, including a space-based element within 3 years, essentially by 2028. And I just couldn't be more happy to hear that that's what's being planned, because for so many years we've had Republican presidents, even Reagan, that I question whether they even plan to deploy it. Obviously, Reagan kind of, he had, I guess, 5 years, that he proposed it in 83, and there was some time to get the technology together, but essentially it was, not many years away. But all the other Republican presidents we've had, including Trump's first term, they just haven't really focused on it. And so,
but yet he created Space Force, which made me think perhaps I kind of thought we already had something, at least armed satellites up there. When I found out you could put a nuke on a satellite or something like that, where you have armed satellites, I was like, oh my goodness, this is Star Wars. But
the big ones they're talking about is just satellites that have big, heavy tungsten rods on them. Don't need no fallout, anything. It's just a big tungsten rod that falls forever and then hits the earth at terminal velocity.
Well, I always thought we had something. So for this Golden Dome to be talked about and the technology, Reagan could have dreamed it with his team, but now we actually have the technology and the advancement that goes along with AI and with, the internet and all of that. I kind of thought we were under kind of some protections, and then to have Canada join in and say, we want to do this with you. I don't know. Is Mexico going to be invited to join for all of North America to have this protection?
I don't think so, but you're right. Canada would be a very important partner to be able to set this up in terms of, early warning systems and ground-based radars and any, ground-based elements potentially as well. I think that, it's an ambitious initiative, and the cost is certainly very reasonable. It's $175 billion. That's pocket change. We're talking about passing a $1 trillion defense bill this year alone. China spends almost half of what our current or double what our current defense budget is, about 96%, according to my estimation. But that's kind of more in the Chinese defense spending range. You think about how much money we waste, about 200 to 250 billion a year on forward deployed forces. If we were to close all our overseas military bases, we would save about 200 to 250 billion if we were to withdraw our troops and bring them home. I think every soldier, we spend about 100,000 per soldier for any troops we have deployed overseas. And so, of course, some of our overseas military bases are worth keeping, but the ones in Europe and especially in the Middle East and to some extent perhaps in Asia as well, we could probably go without them in terms of the East Asian ones. A lot of our Pacific Island bases like Guam, I think, are very important. I'm hopeful that we'll actually build the system, but I'm really worried the Democrats are going to retake, as Holly, you talked about. I think the Democrats are very highly favored to retake the House, and they have probably at least a 50% chance to retake the Senate. So it's very conceivable that Trump may face a Democrat Congress in his last 2 years.
Yep, and that hits a period at the end. His last 2 years are going to be, he'll be stonewalled constantly, and it'll be nothing but executive orders and challenging. Can I just say, I'm so irritated about Doge and Elon Musk. What I'm looking at this big, beautiful bill. You mentioned $1 trillion in our military. I understand the need to rebuild our military from Biden's situation. We had to do it after Obama and, get our Navy back up to par and our Air Force. But what happened to all that money, that waste, fraud, and abuse that was discovered by Doge? Look at all that Elon Musk gave to bring this to the forefront. And now it feels like it's crickets. And that money, I don't see it getting acknowledged in this big, beautiful bill.
It's like every other time we have any political news, it gets to last a couple weeks and then a new news cycle starts.
I'm looking at all of Elon's, what he lost, what he gave up for that.
Elon made a huge, I'm telling you right now, Elon is the most important human alive today. Like him or not, the most important human alive. He gave us free speech back to the internet. Elon did that.
Right.
Elon buying Twitter gave us at least a semblance of free speech. Elon going in and pointing out the corruption in the government made everyone look at the government side eye.
Yeah, well, he woke a lot of people up, and his innovation and plan to go to Mars and the space program.
Maybe that's what he's doing. He's like, man, I'm banging out. This is enough.
I don't understand why they find almost $1 trillion, and here we are spending more. The cuts are minuscule, and they're over 10 years.
Yeah.
And this is frustrating.
So Representative Thomas Massey, who's, I guess, Trump doesn't like him all that much, but he's the best fiscal conservative in the House. And he claimed, and I don't know how this could be backed up, but he claimed that 10-year Republican budget would add $30 trillion in deficit spending over the next 10 years. So, I mean, that would
probably
be
interesting.
$3 trillion a year. So I don't see how that's even possible. I've never doubted anything he said before, but I don't see any. I'd like to see the evidence that proves that. But that said, even if it was 10 trillion or 15, more likely 15 to 20 trillion, that sounds more likely. I mean, it's ridiculous. Why can't, I mean, I think even Trump's talked about maybe getting to a balanced budget at some point during his term. But yeah, the Republicans, we have the neocons and the rhinos. I mean, we have the majority technically, nominally, but there's so divided. So many rhinos, that are more Democrat almost in a lot of ways in terms of their spending habits and their stance on putting America last on foreign policy. People like Joni Ernst, just beyond ignorant on foreign policy issues, and so America last and against what Trump stands for.
Yeah,
I saw Rubio in front of the Senate, and I like Rubio. I feel like Trump has told his team, unleash, do not bow down to these ignorant politicians or anything. And so he's being very bold with them. And I like that because I think it's needed. What I'm afraid of is that Republicans can't get together behind this president. This is what we talked about during the election time. I was so worried that we'd get a repeat of what happened last time. And his anticipation to drain the swamp, I mean, his policy should be showing us exactly who the swamp is, even on our own side. And I'm afraid people are going back to sleep and they're like, oh, we've got the House. No, we lose it. We lose it next year if we're not careful. And
I don't think any president's ever not lost it. Right? There's never been a president who carried their party into the last half of their first term.
I don't
think
actually.
one.
Good.
Yeah, I think I mean, certainly the recent presidents, Bush and Obama, both lost it in their last.
Clinton lost it.
Reagan obviously
Carter lost it. Reagan never had it.
He never had the House, but he had the Senate for I think 6 years of his term. Of his 8 years.
Yeah, it's never been, because the Congress is the dynamism of the plebes, of the lesser people, and that's what you get. But it's, even then, I think we can work with it. We just need to continue on shutting down departments of government that don't provide a benefit,
or that are actually waste, fraud, and abuse of the American people's tax dollars.
Of course, them. But if they
How
don't,
do you say that when you've got them voting for all this other new stuff, and it's like, wait a minute. I know he said he's going to trim Medicaid and get illegals off of that and cut some of that, but then I see that the budget's giving them more money. So I'm just like, what? Wait, if you're going to trim all this waste, fraud, and abuse, why make it a bigger budget for next year? This is insane to me. We are still in COVID spending.
Yeah.
Still.
And Mike Johnson's part of that problem, and John Thune. I mean, they're rhinos, unfortunately. I mean, they support Trump on some issues, but on spending, they're more in line with the Democrats. And I mean, we've seen that so many times with Republican Congresses passing bills that were literally 75% written by the Democrats. I mean, how does a minority party in the House and the Senate end up writing the vast majority of budget bills? I mean, omnibuses. It's crazy. We just cave, our leaders just cave. And then, of course, what happens is every Democrat in the House and Senate votes for the final bill, and then only 1/3 of Republicans. That's the telltale sign that it's a massive betrayal of conservatism.
Here's what I think happens is the Democrats, when it comes to spending, they all universally love it. It's in their mantra. They believe the government should be the avenue for spending money, for making anyone's life a little bit better. And the Republicans aren't for it. And I think even the ones that vote for it aren't for it until they hear from that wealthy constituent back home that's going to guarantee their next run, or they hear from the Republican Party nationally that's going to support them, or maybe their investments. And I think that's when you see the turn in the Republicans. The Democrats are always going to be on board, which is why when you had that, what was that guy from West Virginia, that Democrat,
Manchin.
You had Manchin. He would hear from back home in West Virginia, because West Virginia isn't on that Democrat plantation, but they're voting a Democrat in because he would go and vote against the Democrats. And he would hear from back home, and he'd come back and say, no, the people I support don't want that. And, good or ill, but I think it's a wealthy donor who's going to guarantee his next run, going to guarantee that, getting him on the ballot that next go round. And I think that's what we see in the Republican Party, and it kills us. And I don't know if there's a way around it.
Yeah, we cannot fall asleep again, America. We've got to stay on top of our electeds and
well, the problem is half of America wants it that way.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're doomed. But there's never been a great civilization who's never gone through this and collapsed and watched the next civilization grow up out of the ashes. And we're going to see the same thing. It may not be in our lifetime, but it's guaranteed to happen.
Yeah.
A ray of sunshine.
The thing about this big, beautiful bill is there's some really, really important things in it. I want to say maybe is it the SAVE Act or something? I mean, voter election reform, anti-voter fraud stuff. I mean, just so many good things. Is that I, as a fiscal conservative, would probably swallow hard and vote for it, even though it massively expands the deficit and the debt, just to get those things, because that's the only way you can get them through with through reconciliation, because you'll never get filibuster-proof majority on the conservative side, to be able to get those passed. So I would support it. Obviously Trump twisted some arms to get it passed over the finish line with a 1 vote margin out of the House. But the sad part is the sad part is I heard that this Republican Congress is actually the least productive Congress in terms of they've only passed 6 bills in like 4 months.
Yeah,
that's ridiculously low for
which.
And they've been on vacation for
remember
half
the
of those
contract
months.
with America that you know, when Gingrich was speaker, I mean, he just passed bill after bill. You know, everything was getting enacted. But you know, obviously, there's a numbers issue on the Republican side where we have a very slim majority of 220 to like 214, 213. I think it's 214 because we had a Democrat death. But yeah, it's tough, but we should be able to do better.
Well, and that's the thing. I think the only way, here's a little prediction from the cheap seats. The only way that we long-term save this civilization is if every state goes hard and leans into the 10th Amendment. That is the only way.
Yeah.
We have to cripple the general government.
Well, I just feel like Trump wanted to eliminate a lot of the problems in government, and we're making it bigger. And I'm so sick and tired of these giant bills that have a million things in it that you and I want, that we've been promised through the last election, that we need to make our country better. But in order to get Democrats on board, they've added all this other stuff, the pork. And here we are, we're getting a bill that we probably don't even understand, even people voting on it. And it's gone through, and a one vote majority is terrifying.
That's
people,
just,
if you don't think we're going to lose our seats, you are dreaming, because we're not in a safe place vote-wise in the Republican Party. It just takes one state could give that majority back.
Yeah, we have, I think, a 7 to 8 vote majority. I think the Democrats are actually down to maybe 212 or 213, but House members at this point. But yeah, I mean, it could easily, a shift of 4 seats, I think as little as 4 seats, maybe 5, could change the balance of power and makes Jeffrey speaker. So yeah, that's a risk. I mean, if you look at the polls right now, I would say that's the most likely outcome, even now when Republicans are technically leading. I could be wrong. Maybe if I were to look at the, crunch the numbers, it would show we kept the majority. But a lot can change in the next 18 months.
Well, he needed this win. He needed a bill passed.
What he needs to do is he needs to make sure that citizenship status is on the census.
Yeah. I think
if we don't do that, it doesn't matter what we do.
But that census doesn't come out for
another 5
years.
That's fine. Get it done now. Get it written into law now.
I agree fully.
Because California, the minute you do that, California stares down the barrel of losing 4 congressional seats at the least.
Texas is staring down that barrel.
Yeah, Texas might lose some, but California is going to lose heavy.
Yeah, that's true.
We still have comments to read to you, by the way.
Okay. Thomas says, Trump are a peacekeeper. Biden and Obama, war in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Ukraine. And then he says, what's your point of view about Syria? The new Jolani government. Jolani was most wanted. Now he is German, so most wanted Al-Qaeda terrorist. He is now killing Levites, Alevites, Christians, and Druses. Is that Druze? Only Israel saved this people now. Yeah, what's your thought on that? I'm not pleased with Syria's outcome. Not that I was a big fan of, what was his name?
Assad.
Yeah, Assad. And Assad's a holdover. I mean, Great Britain, how much damage did they do by the way they set up their colonies? So much damage. But yeah, what's your thoughts on that, on Syria's?
Yeah, I mean, Syria's acting president is who used to go by the name of Al-Jolani is he's a pretty heinous guy. He's mass murdering Christians, he's mass murdering Alawites. He's trying to crush the Kurds. Although I think last I heard, they may have come to some kind of agreement to bring the Kurds into some kind of federation. but he's he has American blood on his hands. I mean, he was actually he was an Al Qaeda leader, Al Qaeda in Iraq, and then Al Nusra, and then of course ISIS. So at least two organizations which we branded as terrorists. I mean, we had a 10 million bounty on his head. What was it, like 2 years ago? I don't know how maybe it may have been 1 year ago. It might have been 4. It might have been the Trump era, because obviously Biden was all, apparently he was all for him, because when he took over, he did a happy dance basically. And
wasn't he involved with al-Baghdadi as well?
He was.
Yeah, I thought he was like the second in command or something.
That's what I recall as well. Yeah, so he was way high up there, and now he's wearing a suit and he trimmed his beard and he's getting pictures taken with the President of the United States and the President of France. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It is.
But I mean, obviously, there's a lot more heinous people like that. I mean, Xi Jinping, the President of China, has a lot more blood on his hands. Kim Jong-un, Trump met with him as well. So I mean, I don't fault Trump for getting his picture taken, shaking hands with Al-Jilani. I forget his new name. I think it's Al-Shara. But the idea that we would lift sanctions, I mean, maybe I'm okay with that, but it's just not a good look to me. I mean, if you're going to appease someone like Putin, who's actually wanting to have a friendship with the U.S., where we would have massive national security benefits. We could have joint military exercises with Russia. We could break up the Sino-Russian military alliance.
That's the scary one.
We could neutralize it. It would still exist on paper, and they would still have military exercises. But in terms of if we were to go to war with China, there's no way, if we made peace with Russia, there's no way Russia would fight us. Whereas before Trump, I would be surprised if they didn't join the war and actually have a kinetic war with allied with China against the U.S. over Taiwan.
Even if they didn't, we don't want the second biggest breadbasket in Europe, Asia, to be a logistic hub for China if we go to war with them.
And I feel like Putin and Trump have kind of the same leadership style, other than the murder by Putin, of course.
Other than the murder and totalitarianism.
They're both very narcissistic types who have a plan and expect people to listen and follow. And I'm not saying that Trump is the same as Putin. I totally don't believe that, but I think their personalities are kind of alike, where, like you said, Putin wants a relationship with him. I don't think it would be the same with other presidents. I think we have a really critical time here where making peace with Russia could be huge to national security going forward. And I would love that, but imagine what the press would do. I mean,
because Putin's been falsely painted as a war criminal, as a mass murderer. I mean, he's a murderous dictator. He's killed political opponents, imprisoned them. But I would argue
they all fell out of buildings. What are you talking about? They fell out of large buildings, all by accident.
Yeah, suicided, Soviet style. There's certainly been some of that ever since Biden gave his speech. I'm trying to think of when it was. I think it was in 2011. He basically threatened to help overthrow Putin with some kind of, orange revolution. And before that, Putin, I don't think had killed any of his opponents. And after that, he got really worried and started knocking some of them off. But, Zelensky is just as much of a brutal and murderous dictator as Putin is. And I would argue that Ukraine is a more totalitarian state than Russia is. I mean, they're
corrupt.
Totally. Yeah, they're both corrupt. Russia is more, I would argue, is more free than Ukraine is. And yet we extol Zelensky as some kind of democratic, leader when he stayed in office past his term, and there's nothing in the Ukrainian constitution. Article 83 doesn't say anything about, allowing a president to not hold a democratic election during time of war or martial law. And we pretend it does, so we're really colluding with the dictator of Ukraine, as Trump rightly said, the dictator without elections. And I just wish, I would love to see Trump return to that rhetoric and scrap the minerals deal that was so disastrous from a U.S. standpoint.
Yeah, what a quagmire. Thomas asks, Iran's nuclear program is considered dangerous for Israel for several reasons. Existential threat. Israel views Iran's nuclear program as a direct threat to its national security. Iran has openly referred to Israel as a target in the past, and the possibility of Iran developing nuclear weapons is seen as an existential threat. Arms race. Iran is able to develop nuclear weapons. It could trigger an arms race in the Middle East. Other countries in the region might seek to develop their own nuclear weapons programs.
I think they already have them, Thomas.
Further destabilizing the security landscape. Support for extremist groups.
This is really long. We should probably zip through that.
Well, I agree. He talks about, and yes, I agree with all those, but you also must understand the point of view that Iran could say the exact same power, the exact opposite direction, the exact same threats.
They have made them to America or the West.
It's funny, prior to 1960, Iran was a partner with the U.S. And, or no, 1953, was it?
1979.
Well,
79?
yeah, but, well, hold on. Was it 53 when Kermit Roosevelt went over there?
It was 53 when we overthrew their socialist president.
Yes. And that kind of kicked it off. And we did that for Great Britain, for BP Oil, because, you know, OSS was always a banker's private army. But anyways, which technically it was bankers' private army, bankers and lawyers from Harvard and Yale. But I wonder, I want to take a minute I wonder, would we be better served globally if we brought Iran into a friendly fold? Would Israel be better served if we brought Iran into a global fold? If we went, was it Bismarck who said, if goods don't cross borders, armies will? What if we tried that for a little while?
So you raised a really good point, and I love your innovative thinking, because that's really what's missing. You know, thinking like that, you're automatically called an appeaser. You're called an appeaser of evildoers, or terrorist leaders, or mass war criminals. I mean, we know all the different terms, but really, I mean, what if Reagan had that same opinion? He's like, I refuse to shake Gorbachev's hands. The Soviet Union would still exist today. There would still be Soviet troops in East Central Germany and Central Europe. So, it was because Reagan didn't think like that. He had a smiling, friendly relationship with Gorbachev, who had brutally murdered, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Afghans and, political prisoners in the gulags. Obviously he wasn't anywhere near Stalin, but he was a mass murdering dictator, unlike Vladimir Putin today. He really was. And yet, so many smiling pictures of Reagan and Gorbachev. I mean, heck, the Democrat, I'm old enough to remember when I was a kid, the Democrat nominees or presidential front runners would actually go to Moscow and try to get an endorsement from the Soviet leaders. And then they would come back and say, hey, see, the Soviets like me and I can do business with them. So you should pick me so I can keep peace with the Soviet Union. We don't even have that. We didn't even have diplomacy during the Biden administration with Russia. I mean, they literally threw a diplomatic temper tantrum and refused to talk to Putin, for 3 years. I guess
potentially bombed his pipeline after he threatened to do it, and then
it got
done.
That was a massive international terrorist attack, and it was executed by the U.S. Special Forces under the Biden regime.
The people of Iran. Imagine if the United States was building a relationship with Iran, the government, but we did let goods pass over and let them get goods out. And next thing you know, the people are getting lifted out of whatever thumb they're under. I mean, you've got entire countries full of innocent people who die or starve or suffer due to their government's decisions. And yet, if we went through peace, real peace, it's almost like you have to bring the bully to the table and let them join in, and then you have peace. Trump should be talking to every single member. I mean, you saw what he did to the South African president. I thought that was awesome.
That's one I wanted to get to. That's
man.
an interesting one.
That
We
was
are
incredible. But,
yeah, maybe we should move on to talk about that. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, that was Trump in a nutshell. Wild that he said, "Oh, really? Play the tape. Dim the lights, would you?" You know,
that was unbelievable. That guy couldn't get out of there fast enough.
Yeah.
And you see how the media is portraying it, that Trump ambushed the president of South Africa.
Yeah, well, let me just say, I wanted to mention that I've long been saying that U.S. national security, it can't be just viewed from a military perspective. Diplomacy is a key element. Breaking up the enemy alliances through non-military means. Forging new allies of enemies. Flipping adversaries to friends, strategic partners. I mean, those are more important. Honestly, those kind of things bring us more security than 1,000 nuclear weapons. I mean, obviously not 1,000 less, because then we wouldn't have enough nukes to deter our enemies, but then 1,000 more. And that's why it's in the U.S. national security interest to have good relations with all of our enemies: Russia, China, Iran,
Absolutely.
North Korea. It doesn't mean we need to appease them. It may not even mean we should lift sanctions on them. But it means that if we have good relations with all of our enemies, the chances of World War III are going to be very low. All things being equal, if we don't talk about bombing them,
right?
If we don't have military planning to strike their nuclear sites. So that's why I really like what you just said about having good relations with Iran. And I have never favored lifting sanctions on Iran, but at this point, I'd love to see another Obama type agreement, which I vehemently oppose, just so we can get the bombing off the table.
Yeah,
because it's freaking.
We could even do like a half agreement. Hey, how about you give up doing this, and we'll support you in something. I mean, right now,
from you, or we'll.
Yeah, right now. I mean, right now, from what I understand, Iran sends its uranium to France to be refined to electrical producing levels, and then it gets brought back. So Iran does that so it can sell more of its oil, because its oil's there to be used. So it uses nuclear, and that's the easiest way to do it. Whatever. It'd be nice if Iran just continued using nuclear power and didn't pursue any kind of nuclear armament. That, I don't know. I was going to say, what if we made the Golden Dome so that it covered the whole world, and then nuclear's off the table, period?
Well, with the space-based element, we actually have that potential to be able to, orbit our satellites over allied countries. And in fact, it was Putin himself who proposed in 2000 and maybe again in 2002 that we should have a joint missile defense system that, between the U.S. and the Russian Federation. And now they've done it with China, because we stupidly pushed them into China's arms with the Ukraine war and every NATO expansion over the last 25 years since 1999. As far as the Iran deal, to me, there's like two possibilities. Either Iran has had nukes for a long time because they were so close in 2003, they were 3 months away, and then either they had an intention 22 years ago to develop nukes, or they didn't. And so that means if they don't have nukes, which is what Trump says, what Israel says, they probably don't have any intention to ever have nukes unless we provoke them to actually build nukes. And how would we provoke them to build nukes? By threatening to bomb the crap out of them. So basically, we are in our stupid policy, which again is Netanyahu inspired, that Trump has adopted because of his bad neocon cabinet officials' advice, is really maximizing the chances that Iran, if Iran didn't have nukes before, they most likely have them now.
Well,
so it's a very stupid policy, and a workable, smart, rational, realistic policy would take a position that we want to maximize the chances that they don't have nukes. And the way to do that would have been to do it peacefully and diplomatically instead of bullying them with threats, as the U.S. leaders typically do.
Let's sell them blue jeans and get them off the bombs. But
is it possible someone could have sold them nukes?
Well, possibly
they did. Kazakhstan sold them nukes in 1994.
So why are we not just assuming they have that weapon? They have the weapons. Why aren't we talking to them? Here's another thing. If I'm a country, why is it that I can't develop a product that's going to protect my country, and yet Big Brother over here is telling me what I can and can't do? This feels so weird that we're telling people who can own this weapon and who cannot, and yet
especially
we own
after
a bunch of them.
Especially after Libya. I mean, why would anyone give up their nukes after what happened in Libya?
Am I just crazy, or does that sound like that to you too?
We tell Gaddafi, give up your nukes, you're safe, everything else, and then we wipe him out. Every other country that we might have been negotiating that deal with all of a sudden said, I ain't giving up no nukes.
Yeah, and now there's going to be a lot more nuclear countries because Hillary and Obama.
Yeah, there's no trust. Yeah. And if I was Iran, I mean, I would be like, butt out. This is my country. And if I want to own a nuclear weapon, I'm going to own one. Why does the world get to dictate what that country does?
My wife says the same thing. She's like, what place does the U.S. have telling other countries what they need to do to secure themselves against enemy threats? So obviously, we forget, that Israel obviously is a massive existential threat to Iran. And again, I side with Israel. I always side with Israel against Iran, unless they bomb the crap out of them and threaten to destroy the U.S. Then I'll maybe be a little more sympathetic to Iran, to ending the conflict rather, not bombing it. But it's again, just a really stupid, foolish policy. And
it's global.
I wrote an article about Russia in particular back in 2022, and it was. Basically, what the title was, we just need to show more. U.S. leaders need to show more strategic empathy for Russia. And that doesn't mean we appease an enemy country. It means that we need to understand why they do certain things. Because if we don't understand why our enemies attack other countries or ally with enemies, then we'll never be able to secure America. We can't have a successful foreign policy if we don't actually understand why other countries do what they do.
Their cultures are vastly different than ours. So we do need to empathize with them and understand Iran is a Muslim country, and these people's thoughts and views are totally different than the West's experience. You're absolutely right. We should be looking at their culture, their views, so that we can better understand them. That should be 101 for an enemy or a friend.
And again, I can't overemphasize the fact that I think Iran is the mother of all terrorism. Obviously, Israel's committed some terrorist acts as well, but in terms of anti-U.S., Iran has been a huge perpetrator. They brutally killed 800 U.S. troops in the Iraq War, and they're an enemy country. They likely always will be an enemy. So. I don't feel super comfortable having, massive economic ties with them, but we do need to have peace with them, just as we had peace with the Soviet Union, and maybe some good things can come out of it. Even if the only good thing that comes out of it is they don't try to cyber attack us or super EMP us or nuclear, kill American citizens by the tens of thousands or the millions.
I think
I agree.
I think we win if we can just stay out of another costly, bloody, large war.
I think the world wins when we do that. I mean, I feel like the world wins and people get to have their own country. And I just, it's such a crazy time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about peace through strength, but people forget that there's the peace element.
Yes.
The neocons, they want like war through weakness or maybe war through strength, but they don't really want peace.
Doesn't feel like it, does it?
I think it's because they're
peace is key to U.S. national security. It really is.
I heard one time the neocons come out of the Trotskyist movement that came over here, and they left behind the communist part, but they kept the globalist part. And they want globalism. And they want to force globalism. They're the Republican side of the globalist movement. And that's my understanding of them. And that's what they're motivated by. They're afraid someone somewhere might do something and they don't have a say in it.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So anyway, what are your thoughts? I want to come back to South Africa. What are your thoughts on this South Africa situation? I mean, this has been in the quiet side of the news for a long time, but it's finally at the forefront. And our news obviously is saying it's not happening. It's all fake. But
this has been going on for years.
I have a close friend who is an Afrikaners, and he come here when he was a teenager, and he has, verified, it's going on over there.
Yeah, so the racial genocide against whites, I mean, that's been around for a long time. So I actually, well, first of all, let me say that what they call Freedom Day is my birthday. So April 27th, 1994 is the day that the white Afrikaner government handed over power to the ANC communists. And then subsequent to that, they've had actually a number of communist presidents. Nelson Mandela was admitted he was a Communist Party member, as was his successor Mbeki. So they've been in a coalition government with the South African Communist Party for a long time. But I actually went there as part of a Defense Department delegation when I was an international programs manager on the Army headquarters staff. And I toured South Africa, and what's interesting is they still had white military officers. They're like main generals and flag officers and appointees. The ANC was ruling at the top levels, but the white generals and military officials were very competent. So as long as they were loyal to the government, they kept them in place. But so we were driving along the road. I can't remember exactly where it was. I think it was just outside the outskirts of Johannesburg. And I was told that if our car breaks down, then roving black gangs could kill us because we were white. So that's real. I mean, the same thing happened to me when I was in DC. I took the wrong metro and went along Green Line to Anacostia. And some black guy was like nearby me, and he's like, "Good thing it's 9 a.m. instead of 9 p.m. or you'd be dead." So, I mean, obviously the Democrats, they act as if, blacks can't be racist. But in many parts of the world, and even here in the U.S., they can be, and very murderously so. And obviously, that's not to say there aren't some whites that might feel the same way about other races here in the U.S. But I think the problem is much, much lower. But it was, honestly, it was painful to watch the communists, or not communists, but the South African ANC president.
It was crazy
being berated so completely. But and then all the liberal news, regime media outlets, defended the South African president. Said, "Oh, all these thoughts of claims of white genocide are fake. It's all made up. It's conspiracy theory." No, it's real. It's definitely
been
real.
reported on. PragerU did an excellent, I don't even know when PragerU came out and talked about it, in short snippets of videos with these farmers in the middle of the night. And they're not just getting killed, they're being tortured. And then they're denied medical help. So hospitals don't help them. So when you've got a Senate or the House arguing with Marco Rubio about letting 60 farmers from South Africa come into the country, and they're pissed because they're white, I was shocked by that.
It's outrageous, and it just shows how racist the Democrats really are. They're anti-white.
They're
racist.
They're that, but remember the pushback they gave against anti-communist Cubans who were trying to escape Cuba too. They're the Democrats are the enemy of humanity, 100%. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, they're America's enemy.
Humanity's enemy. If you believe in Satan, he's a Democrat.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah, so I remember all the uproar about Trump when he said there are 7 Muslim countries that we were going to suspend any immigrants coming from from there for, I don't know, a period of time. Sorry, I think my computer has died, so we need to wrap this up, or else.
But no, that is interesting. You went to South Africa. I mean, it's been going on a long time too, and it's a failing state. All of its infrastructure is mid-fail.
It reminds me of Haiti. That corruption, and it's so in deep. Like
maybe we could send the Clintons over to help them out.
Yeah,
maybe.
Everybody.
Well, thanks so much for
David. Shout out you've got a Substack. Shout it out.
Yeah, it's dpyne.substack.com. Once again, dpyne.substack.com.
We'll put it in the show notes. Right?
Yeah.
Doing it on YouTube. DPYNE.
Yep. Yep. And you're gonna check that out. And this is when he says he writes all these papers and all this studies. It's where you go to find it. I want to find, if you can get a copy of that book you and that guy wrote, if you got like a secret underground copy, I would love to read that, because I do believe that the Chinese infiltrators right now are our threat. That is my concern.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, by the way, it's substack.com with the U.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what?
Just because I don't know how to spell.
I got spell corrected, and it says dryness.substack.com. And I can't delete it off of YouTube.
But yeah, hey, thanks for coming on, David. I'll put that back up correctly, and it will be in the show notes correctly.
And I would like this to be continued, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're welcome on anytime, by the way. I mean, if you've ever got something you want to shout out, just jump on here. Sorry, everyone, we didn't get to all your comments. Again, we kind of run out of time.
Well, we'll say goodbye to him, and we'll just finish out the show with
if we were a little better show, we'd have a program where we wouldn't just wander so much. But,
and then you would be bored.
And then I'd be bored. Hey, David, thanks so much, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, friend.
You too. Thanks again.
You too.
Thank you. And happy Memorial Day.
Yes, and thank you for your service, sir. That was mentioned here in from Jordan, so he wants to thank you for your service.
Yes. All right, David, have a good night, sir.
You too.
Bye. Okay, so there was a whole grundle of comments. Sorry we didn't get to all of them. We'll try to read a lot about
we love you, Thomas, but we can't read all of that.
Yeah. We just
short, quick is easier for us during this show, but we do read your comments.
We simply run out of time, and the comments will be there on Facebook hanging out for a long time. Yeah, I like the idea of the Golden Dome around the world. Just saying, you know what? Nuclear is no more. Nuclear is no longer a threat. At least nuclear delivered through bombs and rockets.
Whoever controls the Golden Dome. Us?
Well, there was a Utah who wrote a book that had a kind of a similar theory. And his name was Orson Scott Card. And the book he wrote was Ender's Game. And India was in charge of it, which doesn't sound like a good idea right now for apparent reasons. Maybe we can find a third party, Uganda or something. Not Uganda, Uruguay.
What was that one? I just think everybody, I don't know.
I would make it autonomous.
Well,
shoot it up, set it free. It's autonomous. It doesn't let rockets with any ordnance travel. But anyways, yeah, Orson Scott Card wrote Ender's Game. They had satellites, but India was in control of it in that book, if I remember.
Well, I'm glad to have David on. He always brings so much in depth,
so much knowledge.
I'm amazed. I wish the people that are guiding our president and our administration right now are thinking of peace first. I think that's what we voted for. We're tired of wars. We're tired of it. And yet we're just sneaking in here and there. And I just want to be done with it. I still have hope. I'm still hopeful. And I hope that our elected leaders, especially in this state, are still going to bat for Utah.
Here's the question. Who would be the modern day Metallica to go and do the concert in Iran like Metallica did in the Soviet Union. It was like the biggest concert the world had ever had.
Taylor Swift.
Oh, God, don't.
We can't deny she's.
Oh, can it be anyone but?
I don't think there's anyone bigger that would ignite both, like, the world. She did a world tour. I mean, she's a billionaire because she's so famous.
We have to find out what's popular over there, I guess.
I don't know.
Maybe it'd be a country singer.
I doubt it. I mean, it's got to be something they let play on the radio or whatever there. We don't really know because we don't know much.
I don't think they played Metallica in USSR on the radio. I think that was probably smuggled in stuff.
Probably.
But anyways.
I just so grateful for all of you for hanging out with us this time. We hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Happy Memorial Day, guys.
Is that this week?
Yeah.
Yeah, my kid has a birthday tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday. Which one?
My daughter.
Oh, happy. I watched her sing a week ago.
I didn't get to see her because I was again at a convention. You
got to tell the convention they got to wait until your kids.
Did you see her play the ukulele?
No, I did not, because we went there. Had I known she'd have been, I'd have went early. I wish I'd have watched that, but I did get to watch her sing. First, she was shy about it.
She was really shy,
and I'm like,
she had someone in the audience.
I was sitting closer than her dad was.
Yeah.
He went sat over there so he could see the ukulele action. And I sat so I could see my niece play the clarinet.
Awesome.
But she was there. I went in, said hi to her and give her a big hug and tell her, good luck. And then she went and sang, but she was shy,
She's
trying to hide. But, I think after a little bit of coaxing and telling her to do it, she started singing and she did well. I think she did well. I mean, there was a whole group of kids singing. I didn't hear anyone.
I thought it was super cute.
I didn't hear anyone out of note, so I think she did great.
I got to get a video. The husband took a video. I was at convention.
And I got to say hi to him.
Oh, good.
Yeah, but he had to run.
Well, it's been a great week. I had my birthday.
Yes, you did.
Spoiled everybody. Thank you for...
Holly turned 29. What was it, 2 days ago?
Yeah.
2 days ago, right?
Tuesday.
So 3 days ago, 4 days ago, 3 days ago.
My mother, my husband and kids and my brothers made it very, very special. And then all of you that reached out, I'm just so grateful. I'm always humbled and overwhelmed by amazing people that I know and that they took the time to say happy birthday. So thank you for that. And May's really busy for us at our house because we've got 3 birthdays and our anniversary, all just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, your husband's birthday was, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, and Mother's Day.
And Mother's Day.
Birthday, Mother's Day, anniversary, birthday. And then other family members, my sister-in-law and my niece. So we're all like crammed in there. And my uncle, we're all crammed in there. But May's the best month. I'm so happy. It's such a nice, beautiful... It's been beautiful weather and it's just been so nice. I'm just saying, I'm really positive. I'm happy.
That's good. Now I'll bring you down. So it is Memorial Day weekend. So everybody, please, if you would, take a minute this weekend and think about someone who paid a price for other people.
The ultimate price.
The veterans, but you've also got firefighters, police officers, doctors, guys who run into burning buildings as they're driving down the street, but remember, this is a time to remember that it is the job of men to protect the children, the women, and the civilization. And some people have done that, and this is the time to remember them.
Jordan, thank you. I did talk about convention at the beginning of the show. So do watch it from the beginning because that's what we talked about. It was amazing. Thank you for asking.
She's the seat again.
I won.
She's the chair. So everyone sit on her.
A lot of people that I found don't understand the holiday, Memorial Day.
Well, yeah, but it's not taught like it should
it's
be.
not taught. It is specifically meant to celebrate those who gave the ultimate price.
Yeah, it's following the guys who didn't come home.
Yeah. And I love that people still remember our veterans, and they still remember. I mean, it's a big deal. You go to the cemetery and remember those you lost. I mean, I think this is a very special holiday. And I just, yeah, like you say, when you're celebrating with your family and the people you love and you're barbecuing, do take a moment and remember what all this is about. Why we even have this life that we have here in our country is because somebody gave everything for it.
Yeah. If you're a praying person, take a moment of prayer for those. We've got Veterans Day coming up, and that's where you can celebrate those that came home. You can celebrate, obviously, those that came home now, but Memorial Day, set aside and take a minute and, yeah.
Well, everybody,
yes.
We are so grateful to see you and talk to you, and thank you for all of the comments. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them, but we really, really appreciate it. You're liking, you're leaving a comment. It really helps the show, and hopefully it helps get the word out on stuff that we're learning ourselves, and obviously stuff he already knows tons about. I learned a lot tonight. I always do from David.
Yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge.
He really is.
And his insights has changed too. That's the one that I found this show very exhilarating, to see insights changing. On Tuesday, Jordan says on Tuesday he's laying down his uncle's ashes. Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that, Jordan. Yeah,
his insight has changed, and you're watching it evolve. I wish he would have published that book.
You're seeing that my insight changed in that same direction. Started probably about a decade or just over a decade ago. Because I started, what I did is I did a deep dive into why everything's kind of chaotic over there. And I come out of it with no judgment. I come out of it not saying, oh, this is a good guy, this is a bad guy. Right. It's and it changed me learning that. It made me, I have a more perspective look when I look at global affairs now.
After a lot of the stuff, I remember early on. I mean, I've learned a ton too, just in the last year. But you brought it up that they have to be very careful how they proceed, meaning Israel, because on the world stage it could be damaging.
Well, and this new age, this new kids, what's going to happen in 10 years when the group now that's protesting them is running the country?
Well, right. And, you saw those 2 kids get killed. Those young people get killed yesterday.
Yes. Yeah. I wanted to bring that up too. That's a very sad story. A couple of young lovers that are kind of interning at a museum.
Yeah.
Or interning somewhere. They were leaving a museum and
it was a Jewish museum, right?
Yeah. But then you've got this radical, a Hispanic guy who's been radicalized through whatever's taught him right now, the youth of the world are looking at the world by color, and they're judging everything by color. So
I still don't get how he knew these kids were Jewish.
I think it was just that they were leaving
the
location. And
that was brutal.
Probably just a target of opportunity.
And he didn't fight when police came, and obviously no one was armed. Can you imagine watching what happened to them happen and carrying that? I'm surprised the kid wasn't killed.
Don't go to places where you can't be armed. It's simple as that. Yeah, you cannot. DC has no
couple murdered reciprocity. Outside, and this guy's yelling, "Free, free Palestine!"
Yeah,
and just unloads around a magazine and then reloads and unloads.
And the question there is so complicated. Honestly, the question of the Middle East is a train of errors. I mean, the Zionists go down there and start setting up Israel. So in rejection to that, the rest of the Middle East kick all of their Jewish citizens out. So they all go to Israel, which doubles the size. And then they're mad that Israel dominates. And it's just a trail of errors. everybody, every mistake that could have been made was made there over a 30-year period.
Yeah, and we have nothing but hope and stuff for people in the Middle East.
I don't know what
the people of Palestine and the people of Israel. This is there's an answer here. I'm just not smart enough to know it. To be honest.
I'm smart enough to read and then know I don't know crap.
I mean, I don't know what the answer would be. Would it be to make the Gaza Strip a resort place so people have places to work and there's water and power and everything's feeding into it, and a two-state solution? Would that make the people of Palestine actually feel more secure in their own country and build their own country? Or is it always going to be that they want Israel back? I mean, I don't know, but again, we're starting down it's 8:30.
I know.
Call it.
I know. Remember, everyone, it's DPyne, DPYNE, at substack.com or .substack.com. David Pine, he's got a lot of time. He was really kind of an executive level on the Department of Defense for the United States. I think he was an armor officer, a cavalry officer. So he's a tank officer. So, I mean, he's got a wealth of experience. And so go check him out. Good information.
He's a treasure.
He is. And we have him here in this county. Our county does some amazing crap. We got the Virtual Horizons ladies. We got David. We got a whole bunch of stuff. We got Holly. She's a chair. And
we got Jared, who's like famous.
Just a moron who wears a shirt that blends into the background.
Related to everyone that I run into around town, which means I'm related to these people. It's so cool.
Yeah, that's true.
We love you all. Thank you, Norma. Yes. Thank you for chiming in.
Yes.
And Kim, thank you.
Yes.
And the new faces, welcome. We're so happy to have you. And thank you for leaving a comment. We're really, really grateful. But we should wrap it up, and happy Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day. Be safe. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, I guess.